Hello, I'm Hugo Austin and this is GraftCast. This is the show where we delve into the minds of some of business's biggest leaders and entrepreneurs. So today I'm joined by a man whose professional career started in sport and through a few twists and turns now finds himself with his own marketing agency. Jerry Taylor, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So can you just give us a little bit of a background to you and that sort of follows on to where you are now?
Right, how long have we got? I'm very old and I've been doing this for a long time. So I left school at 17 after sitting my A-levels and moved straight into the professional rugby world. So I played for London Irish under 21s level. Then unfortunately broke my leg in my first full-time season, which finished my career. I moved back into rugby, playing for my club side, my original club side of Windsor. I coached them to the Middlesex Sevens. I coached them to the county championship. I then moved in. I thought I need to get a proper job and moved into what was then recruitment advertising only for a company called Barker's Norman Broadbent. Worked my way through there. Spent 10 years there. Left as media director and moved around a couple of times through a couple of agencies and then into the media. So working for News International at the time, so the Times Education Supplement. And then back to another agency, back up here near Milton Keynes, and thought it's time to do my own thing. So that, in a minute, is the last 30 plus years of my career.
Was there a time that you sort of found that you had leadership sort of skills, or what did it come from a young age, your leadership skills?
The one thing I never achieved on the rugby pitch was I was never captain. Which I don't think personally at the time I was right for. I grew into my leadership roles over probably the last 10 to 15 years of my career. As I said earlier, I started off as an account executive, so the entry level in any agency, moved the way through to media director, looking after some significant, not only budgets, so £100 million plus media spends, but also managing six people. My last agency role was managing up to 30 people. So it came later on in my career.
Yeah, okay. So did your family play any part in sort of your career journey, sort of maybe even going back to when you started sport? Yeah. So I unfortunately lost my father quite early on in my career. He passed away quite young, but which left my mum as a single mum, and that's who I rely on for my drive and motivation. I've never seen a woman who wasn't hugely paid. She was a dental nurse, then a dental practice manageress, really managed budgets, managed two quite strapping teenage boys, look after a house, and so she's been the real driving force behind where I find myself now. Okay. So you've got a brother. Is he older or younger?
Younger brother. Okay. He's the younger big brother. He's 3 inches taller than me and about a foot wider than me, which is going some. But yeah, he's a younger brother.
And was he into sport as well? Or?
He tried. He's a bit of a lightweight, to be honest. He tried rugby.
Will he watch this?
Yeah, hopefully he's going to watch it. No, he tried rugby. Wasn't his thing. He's a bit more academic. He's now an engineer, so he went down the more academic side of things.
And so your love of sort of rugby and sport in general, did that start quite early then? Okay.
Yeah, my love of rugby started with, I can trace it right the way back to my very first PE teacher, a gentleman called Mr. Finch at Oakfield Primary School in Windsor. He probably saw something in me. I was an early developer in terms of I was probably a foot taller than everyone else in the class. It didn't go on for very much longer. Hugo, you're not like yourself. He saw something in me and said, rugby's your game. I did play county hockey. I was goalkeeper for the under-16s team at Windsor Boys School.
With all the pads on and everything.
Yeah, basically, if it was sport-related, I can get involved in it. Yeah. I'd loved it.
Fantastic. And was there any sort of, you've talked about obviously your mum and that sort of teacher, was there any other sort of role models at the time that you sort of looked up to? Well, it was the real heyday of, apart from the Olympics, it was a real heyday of sport growing up in the kind of 80s and 90s. You had the likes of Duncan Goodhue, Daley Thompson, Fatima Whitbread, you had Will Carling playing rugby. There was some real iconic figures in the sports that I liked. So yeah, not that you got to, occasionally you got to meet your superstars, but yeah, there was quite a few names around at the time.
So can you just talk a little bit about sort of your time at London Irish and maybe just sort of selection to go into London Irish maybe?
So Windsor Rugby Club still is a feeder club for London Irish, was a feeder club for London Irish, obviously given its demise last year. Was a feeder club for London Irish, and I, at the end of one season, got asked if I would go to a tryout at London Irish, and this was when I was 17, 18.
Okay.
Went along, got on really well, played for the under 20, you work your way through under 21s, got asked to go, and this is a really important step within my career personally. I got asked to go into the 21s, was the direct feed into the first team if you were good enough, and I got asked to be sit on the bench for a game. I think it was against Harlequins, and I personally didn't think I was ready for the opportunity. So I said no, which was fine. You could say no if you didn't think because the top 2 inches is really important in sport. If your head's not in it, then that's when you get injured. I said no, and I think within 10 minutes I regretted that decision. Not that it held me back. I think it held me back, but obviously I ended up playing for the second team and the first team a couple of times. But I could have got there a lot earlier had I taken that opportunity.
Okay. And so moving on to sort of the lead up to the injury, and the injury itself. So can you just tell me a little bit about that, please?
So yeah, I was playing for London Irish. It was the first game of the season, so September the 3rd or 4th, I think it was. I was actually playing for Windsor. I'd asked because the London Irish season started a bit later. I was playing for Windsor. You know what it was like. It was kind of semi-professional, professional era, that transition phase. And I would play for anyone, literally anyone. The list of clubs I've played for is huge. And I got asked to play for Windsor, and I broke my leg in 6 places, scoring a try.
It was scoring a try?
Scoring a try. So we had a move where I was playing on the blindside flank of the scrum at the time. We had a move where if it was our put in inside our 22, I would drop off the back of the scrum half would flick the ball to me, I'd pile through whoever was in my way and dive over the line and get all the glory. I did exactly that, and I dove for the line, and their fullback tackled me, totally legal tackle, real textbook tackle, around the ankles, and it looked like he got the heel of my boot tucked under his armpit. He rolled over, and I didn't, and he spiral fractured the bottom of my leg.
Jeez.
That was the end of rugby career.
And was that decision made just pretty much straight away?
Well, I went to hospital and was operated. That was on the Saturday. I was operated on the Monday, and asked the physio on the Monday afternoon, right, I need to keep fit. I want to work out my top torso at least to keep fit. I was a prop and blindside flanker, so I was quite bulky up top. And she came back with 2.5 kilo dumbbells. There you go. Crack on with those. So that wasn't never going to happen, but I soon realised, because I then spent on and off 2 years in hospital. I had upwards of 8 or 9 operations, finishing with what's called Ilazar offerings, which is a titanium external cage on the outside of my leg. You see them occasionally with pins going through, and rebuilt my leg going forward. So that was it. I was done.
Okay. And how old were you at that point?
I was 22 then, so very early.
So early in your career.
Very early. Yeah, it was, and I also used to have a bit of a hang up on it, that it was the one thing I was truly good at. One thing I was.
Yeah, and how did you feel? How did that sort of make you feel?
Dreadful. I remember getting dragged into my headmaster, another really positive influence on my career at Windsor Boys School, a guy called Peter Blake. He was my headmaster, and I got dragged into him. He said to me at the time, when I was sort of 16, you've got to study. You've got to have a fallback plan, because at any minute now, that career can be taken away from them. And at 16, I was bulletproof. I've played for Harrods, Middlesex under 16s. I played for the Met Police. I played for Courage Breweries. Literally anyone. 2 or 3 games a week, and just couldn't get enough of it. And you'd think you're bulletproof. Turns out, you're not.
So when you had that injury, did you have a set plan B at all, or anything like that? What was the thought process in terms of professionally?
I never had a plan B. It was always rugby. But you soon quickly, when you're sat at home with your leg up in the air thinking, I've got no money, and a single parent mum that's trying to make ends meet, you kind of have to get a plan B pretty damn quick. And I got a job in good old fashioned days by applying for a job in the local paper, which was Barker's Norman Broadbent.
Was there anything at London Irish or in rugby at the time that would help people like that had?
Very little. The one thing I did get was excuse my French, this was the time of Will Carling called the RFU the old farts. I'm pleased to say I got a visitation by a RFU old fart, and he was an old fart. And some help from the RFU was 2 tickets to every England home game at the then 5 Nations.
Right.
That was it.
And no money?
No money, no nothing, no support mechanism. I know they've moved leaps and bounds. They have to, even at club level. When I was playing, it was always county level that were feeding into England more than the clubs. But at club level, they're much more proactive around support and mental health and mental well-being and that sort of stuff.
Okay. So you've broken your leg. And where's the first place that you go to for work?
A place called Barker's Norman Broadbent. Barker's bit was the advertising agency. The Norman Broadbent bit was the search and selection piece. So big, high-flying consultants up in London.
Yeah, and they let you in with your broken leg?
No, I didn't have a broken leg at the time. I was fixed, thankfully, after 2 years of shenanigans. I started, I can't remember, I've got vague recollection, it was a long time ago. It was summer, and I started off, as I say, actually in the Norman Broadbent piece, and then moved to the Barker's piece about a year later, and started off as an account exec, so looking after clients, making sure ads were going in the papers, making sure deadlines, bookings, etc.
Cool. So was there any transferable skills from sort of the rugby pitch to business life?
I think, and I've always taken this through all of my career in advertising, is the teamwork element to it. That's the one skill. I could bench press 180 kilos. It doesn't tend to help you too much when you're sat at the heaviest thing you lift is a pen when you're sat at your desk. But teamwork and support and communication are probably the 3 things that I took into my proper career.
So how did you cope with the psychological sort of, I've left rugby now, I now have to completely change what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Did that affect you psychologically, or like as a fly on the wall at the time? What would people have seen sort of?
I don't doubt it did. As I say, I spent 2 years in hospital, and my sleep patterns absolutely reversed themselves. So I would be awake during the night shift in hospital talking to the nurse, because they generally got a little less to do, so they'd play cards or what have you. And I would shut out. I would go to sleep during the daytime, so I didn't have to interact with people. Looking back, that's probably not a great trait, not a great pattern to get into. But at the time, it felt normal, it felt comfortable. It wasn't, looking back, there was some, and I've always looked back thinking, what if, but interestingly, I had a big issue when I was about 30, because that would have been roughly where I would have probably, as a prop, retired from the game, thinking, he's gone. I haven't played rugby in 8 years, 9 years. So that was a bit of a wobble, but by and large now, pretty good.
Yeah, good. So moving on to sort of like entrepreneurship and business. Can you tell me about the early days of working in business and
Yeah.
Just how you're doing.
So the early days of Barker's, the one thing I always sought out was the big deal. I loved working with the media. I loved working with clients, fixing problems for them, putting in campaigns together, bartering deals, negotiating deals. That was my real forte, because I still say it to this day. I do my best work in front of people. This sort of element where I'm talking to people, listening to people, etc. I held the record for a long time for the agency's biggest spot buy, so making money above and beyond the price of an ad in a newspaper. It was an outdoor campaign, so I made a £47,000 spot buy, and I always hungry for that kind of frisson, that deal, that the little bit of a jolt you get from making those sorts of deals. So that was where I started, and that's really lived with me throughout the whole of my advertising career. The talking to media owners, making those senior, as I got through more senior in my own career, making those senior relationships, which have borne fruit from day one right the way through to last week. I was talking to an old media contact of mine. So it is, especially in advertising, your network is your net worth.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And was that what sparked the interest in marketing and advertising altogether, that deal?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Don't get me wrong, fixing people's problems. And the first time you see your ad on a billboard or in a national paper, I still have to tell my mum roughly every 6 months what it is I do for a living, but she's kind of getting there now. But when you see that, your first deal or your first ad or your first tube card panel, and you point it out to your wife and the tube, which I've done. I did that. I put that there. It's a great feeling.
Cool. And at what point of that, so was it early on that you felt like you wanted to lead in that, or?
Not so much. I think I grew into leadership, as I said earlier. I worked for a guy who was media director for Barker's, a guy called Mark Cartmel, and he was a proper wheeler and dealer. He knew everyone and was sharp as a tack when it came to figures. He saw something in me and took me out of our office that was then in Slough and dropped me into their London office to become the media manager. And the media manager looked after a team of media buyers. So I knew them all. So I was, and which is also tough, I was promoted from within. So when you're out with your mates on a Friday afternoon down the pub, on Monday, you're now managing those people. That's a big transition. That's a big learning curve.
Yeah, definitely. And what does entrepreneurship mean to you?
I tell you what it does mean. It's hard work. It's graft. You put in what you get out. You get out what you put in. Even see, the old rugby mind's still sharp as a tack. It's hard work. It's attention to detail. You have to be in what I'm doing, which I'm currently a one-man band. I'm relying on my network, so I'm not a designer. So I've got some really crackerjack designers that I can rely on. I'm not a web builder. I've got some people that can build my websites for them, but what I am is a negotiator. I'm a media person. I'm front of house talking to clients. So that's the bit that I really enjoy and really look after. The entrepreneurship is making sure that all of those cogs, all of those elements are turning at the same time, in the same direction.
All right. And let's just go back to when you first started. At that point, did you ever see yourself having your own business, or no?
I always used to say that I was a company man. Intrinsically, I'm lazy. I like the company car. I like the PAYE salary. I like the private medical. I like the pension, and I like somebody else all sorting that out in the background for me. The last 18 months has shown me that why not do it yourself? It's difficult, but nothing worth doing is easy. If you have to put the effort in, but it's not insurmountable. That's why yourself. You've started yourself up, and you know that setting up QuickBooks or Xero or whatever accountancy package is not the sexiest thing in the world to do. Filing your VAT return at the end of the quarter is not the sexiest thing to do. It's got to get done though. And it's having that mentality to do the detailed stuff and the really cool stuff that we do in the agency world.
Cool. So moving on to sort of the charity work side of things. For those that don't know, sort of a lot of the people that Jerry works with are charities. Is there a reason why you work with charities, or what is it?
I think two things. Rewind again to my time at Windsor Boys School. Windsor Boys School was, as it is, boys' school. At the time there was 800, 900 pupils there. We had the first 4 forms, and you had lower sixth, upper sixth, and lower sixth and upper sixth you were persuaded to do extracurricular, because what they were trying to do is build you for going to university. They were trying to get you into that mentality of doing, yes, there's studying to be done and there's chemistry experiments to write up, etc. But there's also a world out there where they're trying to build that all-round individual. So we do charity work there. That was the first exposure I had to charity work. It's only local stuff, but it still made a difference. Fast forward to my career at Barker's, then I worked with some of the biggest charities in the country. Worked with Mencap, worked with Mind, worked with Bernardo's on recruitment advertising campaigns. So that again kind of set the tone of where I wanted to do. Don't get me wrong, I do commercial stuff as well, but just going that a little bit further for the charities is what gets me up in the morning. Also, I've been doing this a long time. I've been doing it 30 odd years. It's time to start giving back. There's a lot up here. A lot of it's useless, but there's a lot of information up here that helps people, that could help people if I can point people in the right direction, using my network again. Go and speak to this person. They're really good at this. That's kind of where I get up in the morning.
And do you have like a process, or do charities have to do a certain thing for you to work with them, or how do you sort of choose which charities you work with?
No, I love animals. I've got 3 dogs and various chickens and what have you I've had in the past. But that doesn't get me up in the morning. What gets me up in the morning is children. So looking at charities that help underprivileged children or neurodiversity in children is exciting. Doing a piece of work at the moment where we're going to put an art installation in Milton Keynes that celebrates neurodiversity middle of next year. So we're looking for corporate sponsors around that. So anything around children, also poverty. Poverty is a real kick. I've been very privileged to live in some very nice places, to earn decent money, and I know there is the other end of the spectrum, and it's tough for people out there. I've done work with Milton Keynes Food Bank, for instance, where I wrote a application to a national lottery grant for them, which was successful. And that, again, if you look back, if you looked at the helicopter view, sorry for the use of that phrase, but if you took the helicopter view, that's me searching out the deal again. That's me getting the deal through, the big number, so that it still fits my agenda, but it's giving back as well.
Is there any particular work with charities in the past that you can think of that come to mind that would be of note, or any ones that you particularly enjoyed?
I particularly enjoyed working, I mentored a neurodiverse individual for Ride High for 6 months. That was, because again, it's that personal piece. Lockdown was horrendous for most charities. The cost of living crisis has been horrendous for a lot of charities. So my time, it's not free. I do give it free, but there's obviously a cost in everything you do. So if I can give back a little bit, that's what I'll do.
And would you give any advice to business owners that are looking to sort of work with charities or go into the charity sector?
Just do it. That's the first piece of advice. If you're thinking about it, do it. But be a bit selective about what you want to get involved in. Have a think about, is it children, is it animals, is it poverty, is it a food bank, is it early onset blindness? There's 1,001 charities out there that need people's help. What level do you want to get involved in? Do you want to go as a trustee? Do you want to be a volunteer? Do you want to be a fundraiser? Do you want to just give your time willingly? But the main thing is make sure it resonates with you.
Yeah.
If you're just doing it for it looks good on the CV, it'll last 6 months. It won't. You'll do it and go, I didn't really get anything. You've got to. If you get something out of it and they get something out of it, that's the main goal.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. Okay. And so the next bit is sort of leadership management. Would you say you have a leadership style at all?
I would probably say yes, and hopefully none of my colleagues will see this because they'll probably tell me something completely different. I think my style is one of collaboration. I think, especially later on in my career, it was very much listening and mentoring and teaching rather than move that from A to B. I say you do. I've never been that sort of a manager. I've never, ever micromanaged because I've been micromanaged in the past and it is horrible.
Yeah.
It's when you are walking around the block of the office that you're in London or where your office is sat and you can't face going into that office because of that manager, because of your manager, there is something wrong. And I've been there and it's not nice. So never been a micromanager, much more collaborative. Always said my door is always open. We'll have an open conversation because I know I haven't got all the answers. Somebody out there, whoever I'm managing or within my network, will have the answer. And that's always been my ethos.
A bit of a tough question, but how would you say that your colleagues and employees would describe your management style, or would describe your style or you as a person, really? Yeah. Approachable.
I think there's been instances as a new manager when I've not made the right decisions for one reason or another, and I've not been able to back those reasons up with any kind of logic or sound thinking. Some would say I'm too quick to jump to decisions without looking at the full picture, but that's always been me. Come on, let's get it done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'd like to think, and I'd be interesting to hear otherwise, that when I've managed people, they've genuinely enjoyed the experience.
Yeah, I can vouch for that.
Yes, I managed you, didn't I? We're still talking.
Exactly. Yeah. So on your CV, it sort of says about being part of the Milton Keynes Business Leaders partnership. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So when I joined WSA, I did two things first. First thing I did was, or three things. First thing I did was look at the business. So I was looking internally. Where are the skeletons buried? What needs to be sorted? What are people thinking about? It's all internal. I then looked at the business plan. So that was the first 2 or 3 months. I then looked at a business plan. Right, where do I want to take WSA to ultimately, and how do we get there in those stages? But then the third thing was, right, look external, look at the business community, look at the networking opportunities available to you in Milton Keynes, our new, well, not so new city now. Where are they? What should we be going to? So I spread my net wide. Went to, if you want to, you can do breakfast, lunch and dinner at Milton Keynes at various networking groups. So I spread my net wide and then gradually brought it down to 2 or 3 networking groups, one of them being MKBLP, which is Milton Keynes Business Leaders Partnership. It's a preeminent group within Milton Keynes. It's been, apart from City Breakfast, which I also go to, they're the longest single running networking group in the city. And they have the prestigious MKBAA Awards, Milton Keynes Business Achievement Awards, and they are kind of the top level, if you want to look at it like that, at the top level of businesses within Milton Keynes. So you've got the Santanders, the Network Rails, Unity Place, all the big brands go to MKBLP. So I got involved. It was lucky that Nick Mann, who is the chair and still is the chair of MKBLP, was also in the advertising world. So we struck it off. We got on reasonably well. Kept it a little bit distant because he's obviously a competitor. And he invited me, or I applied to become a member of his board. So I was a member of his board for a couple of years, 2-year tenure. So yeah, I became a board member of MKBLP after passing the interview, and did a 2-year tenure as chair, not as chair, as a member of the board. And as my career started to move away from WSA, then I resigned the board position and just use it as a networking opportunity now.
Great. So during your time throughout in marketing and advertising, what has been sort of the biggest change that you've seen over the years?
Unsurprisingly, it's the march to digital.
Yeah.
It's just been, I feel very privileged to have witnessed that in advertising, not just recruitment advertising, but advertising and marketing in full. Digital, when I started, was non-existent. It's the way you sent an email. You push send and it disappears and it arrives at somebody else's inbox. Where we are now in terms of programmatic advertising, AI, social media advertising, all of the kind of pinnacle cutting edge technology just didn't exist 5 years ago, let alone 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So that's the biggest change I've witnessed.
Okay. And you sort of mentioned AI in there. What's your thoughts on AI?
Love it. More the merrier, please. I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago and got asked that question, is AI going to take your job? No. AI, somebody that knows how to use AI is going to take my job. Yeah. Where AI is still in its infancy, and you still need that human element to cross-check stats, to give it that human touch, to make sure that everything's accurate. So yeah, I fully embraced AI with a liberal coating of human intervention.
Cool. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to do a bit of a closing thing.
Oh God.
But
okay.
So I'm going to do an ABC question. So you choose A, B, or C, and it's a question that you haven't actually seen yet.
Oh, brilliant!
So
not that I've seen many of these questions.
Yeah, exactly. A, B, or C.
Let's go in the middle. B.
Okay. If you could go back to a certain point in your life and live it again, what would it be?
Diving over the line to score a try.
And then breaking your arm.
That would be it. I would reverse that moment, take a different line, or drop the ball, or
exactly
not die.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've been blessed to have an amazing career in advertising. Yeah. I've met some great people, done some great things. I grew up in the world when the News International would take us to Paris for the day. All of that sort of stuff. I've lost count of the nice restaurants I've eaten and drunk in. It sounds brilliant, and it is. So that's the bit I would change. Is I've got unfinished business in rugby.
Yeah, definitely. Just one more thing. Did you have any sort of advice for anybody that is maybe in the same position as you, has had a really bad injury, is in professional sport in general, and doesn't know where to go at the moment? Yeah. Do you have any advice for them?
Well, let me take it a step back and talk to those people that haven't had an injury. And that is, listen to those people around you. It's not cool listening to your mum or listening to your dad, or taking advice from your mum or your dad or your aunt or your teacher or your local priest, whoever it may be. It's not cool because it's not the thing to do. But there's a reason. You learn throughout your life. There's a reason that they want to impart that knowledge. Some people don't do it very well, granted, but they want to impart that knowledge. Your mum and dad and teachers are telling you stuff for a reason, because it's a learned experience, or they've witnessed it through other people's eyes, what you're going through. Listen to people. You don't have to take their advice, but just listen to it and form your own opinion on stuff. People with an injury, let's fast forward a little bit. People with injury, I feel for you. It's horrible. Hopefully, touch wood, it's not too serious. Do your physio. My leg, I can barely walk now. I walk with a limp all the time. Do your physio all the time. Listen to those around you. Listen to the experts. but never give up hope that there's a future for you. And if it doesn't turn out to be the future you planned, then have that plan B in place. Have that plan B before, touch wood, the worst happens. It's always good to have that plan B. I didn't have that, and I had to think on my feet. Now, if you ask anyone in the recruitment advertising world, what did you want to be? No one at school wanted to be in the recruitment advertising world.
No.
But I must reiterate, I'm really, really glad that I am.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for being on GraftCast.
Thank you for asking me.
Cheers.
Cheers.